Rosendo Rodriguez III spent 10 years on death row, his fate sealed by lethal injection. The most disturbing twist? He raped, beat, and crammed a pregnant woman's body into a suitcase, leaving her to suffocate in a landfill dumpster, discarding her like forgotten luggage. But to understand the path that led to such horror, we need to rewind to where it all started, in a seemingly ordinary Texas town. Smash that subscribe button as we dive into their dark stories, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Born on March 26, 1980, in Wichita Falls, Texas, Rosendo grew up in a home that looked stable from the outside, but hid deep cracks. His father, Rosendo Rodriguez Jr., was a defense attorney for over 2 decades, providing a middle-class life with structure and resources. Yet behind closed doors, the father was an alcoholic tyrant who beat his wife and children, including young Rosendo, creating an atmosphere of fear and violence. Family members later described Rosendo as loving and intelligent, a kid who could charm anyone, but the constant abuse left scars, teaching him early that power and control came through force. Was this the seed of his later rage, or just one piece of a darker puzzle? As a child, Rosendo moved around due to his father's job, but details of his early school days remained sparse, no tales of playground fights or obvious rebellion. By high school though, warning signs flickered. He sexually assaulted his first girlfriend, a secret act that went unreported, hinting at a hidden side that viewed intimacy as conquest rather than connection. He carried this into adulthood, joining the Marine Corps Reserves after graduation, where the discipline seemed to fit his sharp mind. Monthly training brought him to Lubbock, Texas, and he pursued higher education at Texas Tech University, aiming for a law degree like his father. Smart and ambitious, he blended in easily, bragging to friends about casual hookups and prostitutes, treating sex like a handshake. But beneath the charisma lurked a predator. During college, he raped at least 4 women, choosing vulnerable targets unlikely to speak up, a naive student he befriended, others he terrorized in silence. These acts built a pattern of manipulation and violence, unchecked by any arrests or consequences. How did a promising Marine and student spiral into something so sinister? The answers lie ahead, in the nights when opportunity turned deadly. In the early hours of May 4, 2004, 16-year-old Joanna Catherine Rogers slipped out of her Lubbock, Texas home after chatting online with older men, a secret habit that exposed her vulnerability in a digital world where predators lurked behind screens. Joanna, a bright but rebellious teen dreaming of a bigger life, had been communicating with Rosendo Rodriguez III, then 24, through a singles chat site. He lured her with promises of connection, picking her up in his car during one of his Marine Reserve training weekends in Lubbock. What started as consensual sex in his vehicle quickly turned nightmarish. When she demanded money and threatened to expose him, Rodriguez claimed a fight broke out. He choked her to death, her young life snuffed out in a burst of rage and control. The crime scene was the isolated confines of his car, far from prying eyes, where her pleas went unheard. But was this self-defense, or the first strike of a pattern? The tragedy deepened as Rodriguez stuffed her still warm body into a suitcase, discarding it in a city dumpster like worthless trash, leaving her family in agonizing limbo for over 2 years, searching desperately for a daughter who would never come home, her potential forever stolen in a moment of senseless violence. Fast forward to September 11-12, 2005, when Rodriguez, now 25 and back in Lubbock for another reserve drill, crossed paths with 29-year-old Summer Lee Baldwin, a struggling woman from Washington State who had turned to sex work to survive amid drug addiction. Summer, about 10 weeks pregnant, and bearing a tattoo of her name on her ankle, was last seen alive around midnight on September 11, climbing into a red pickup truck driven by a clean-cut Hispanic man, Rodriguez. He took her to his room at the Holiday Inn, where they had but the night spiraled into horror, an argument erupted, and Rodriguez unleashed a brutal assault, inflicting over 70 blunt force injuries across her body, including vicious blows to her head, back, stomach, and legs. He raped her vaginally and anally, then strangled her until she lost consciousness. The crime scene was the sterile hotel room stained with blood on the carpet and bed, a place meant for rest turned into a chamber of torment. In a chilling twist, Summer didn't die from the beating. She suffocated slowly inside a suitcase, alive but trapped. Her final moments a desperate silent struggle for air as her unborn child perished with. The emotional toll is heartbreaking, a woman fighting for a fresh start, her pregnancy a fragile hope, reduced to a disposable object in a killer's cold calculation. How could one man's weekend routine hide such devastation, ripping families apart and leaving a community haunted by the fragility of trust? After the murders, Rodriguez moved with eerie composure as if erasing lives was just another task. Following Joanna's killing, he simply drove away, returning to his San Antonio life without a trace, her body ending up buried deep in the Lubbock landfill after the dumpster was emptied. No immediate clues surfaced, allowing him to evade suspicion for years, until his arrogance caught up. For summer he left the hotel around 3:30 a.m. on September 12, drove to a nearby Walmart, and calmly purchased a black suitcase and latex gloves using his debit card, even smiling at the cashier despite the blood on his hand. Back in the room he crammed her body inside, cleaned up superficially and dumped the suitcase in a dumpster, which was hauled to the same landfill. He then ate breakfast at Chick-fil-A, watched a movie in his room, and boarded a bus home posing for a group photo with a grin while wearing the same green shirt from the store video. But cracks in his facade appeared. His laptop revealed searches for news on Summer Baldwin and single sites, hinting at a predatory obsession. What drives someone to discard human lives so casually, treating victims like forgotten baggage? Evidence piled up swiftly for Summer's case, painting an undeniable portrait of guilt. On September 13, 2005, a landfill worker discovered the suitcase with her naked, battered body inside, identified by fingerprints and her tattoo. A tiny UPC code on the luggage traced it to Walmart, the only local seller, and surveillance footage captured Rodriguez buying it at 3:30 a.m., driving the red truck rented for his training, and wearing that distinctive green shirt. Debit card records confirmed the purchase, while hotel keycard logs showed him entering and exiting the room at suspicious times, like 12:30 a.m. Blood spatter in the room matched Summers, and discarded latex gloves bore her DNA on the outside and his on the inside, plus a used condom and a Walmart receipt nearby. 2 knives from Summer turned over by his lawyer fueled his self-defense claim, but no defensive wounds on him contradicted it. Detectives zeroed in, interviewing him at his parents' San Antonio home on September 15, where they seized his laptop, phone and the green shirt, leading to his arrest that day for capital murder. For Joanna, the link emerged later. Cell phone records showed Rodriguez called her twice the night she vanished, but never again, and her online chats pointed to him. While awaiting trial, he confessed during plea talks, guiding authorities to her body in the landfill after a grueling 2-month search funded by a grant. 904 days after her disappearance, her remains finally giving her family closure amid the profound sorrow of what might have been. These threads of evidence unraveled his charming exterior, forcing us to question how hidden darkness can lurk in the most unlikely people, forever altering lives in its way. When the net closed in on Rosendo Rodriguez III after his September 15, 2005 arrest, he spun a tale of self-preservation that painted him as the victim in a deadly struggle. He claimed that on the night of September 11-12, 2005, he picked up Summer Baldwin for consensual sex in his Holiday Inn room, but things turned violent when she lit a crack pipe and lunged at him with 2 knives, one a pocket knife, the other a steak knife. In a panic, he said, he put her in a chokehold until she went limp, checked for a pulse and found none, then bought a suitcase to hide her body, fearing no one would believe his story as a Marine reservist. For Joanna Rogers' 2004 murder, he later confessed a similar defense during plea talks. She demanded money after sex and threatened him, leading to a fatal fight. But was this the truth, or a calculated cover for something far more sinister, forcing us to wonder how far someone will go to rewrite horror as heroism? Autopsy results revealed Summer suffered over 70 blunt force injuries from a savage beating, blows to her head, torso and limbs, not the quick chokehold Rodriguez described, and signs of vaginal and anal rape contradicted his consensual claim. He had no defensive wounds or scratches, undermining any knife attack story, while blood spatter in the hotel room was scattered across the carpet and bed, not confined to the bathroom area where he said the scuffle happened. Walmart surveillance showed him calmly buying the suitcase and gloves at 3:30 a.m., smiling at the cashier with no signs of distress, and hotel key logs tracked his comings and goings that matched the timeline of a cleanup, not a frantic escape. DNA on the gloves linked him inside and Summer outside, plus a used condom and receipt nearby sealed the forensic track. For Joanna, phone records showed his calls to her home right before she vanished, and his post-disappearance internet searches for news on both victims hinted at a guilty conscience monitoring fallout. These details didn't just disprove his alibi, they revealed a predator's pattern, prompting the question, how many lies does it take before we see the monster beneath the map? The trial in March 2008 at Lubbock's 14th District Court was a gripping showdown. Relocated to Canyon, Texas for a fair jury amid local media frenzy, prosecutors charged Rodriguez with capital murder under 2 theories: killing Summer during aggravated sexual assault and murdering more than one person, her and her unborn child, in the same act, though the pregnancy knowledge was later deemed insufficient for that count. Key moments unfolded like a thriller. The state paraded damning evidence from landfill discovery testimonies to video footage of Rodriguez's Walmart trip, autopsy photos, highlighting the brutality, and his own recorded statement admitting the disposal but clinging to self-defense. Defense attorneys countered by arguing the sex was consensual, the death accidental or manslaughter-level negligence, perhaps from suffocation in the suitcase, and painted his abusive childhood as mitigation, urging the jury to see a flawed man, not a monster. But the penalty phase turned explosive. 4 women testified to prior rapes by Rodriguez, including college assaults where he targeted the vulnerable, building a portrait of habitual violence that screamed future danger. Joanna's case loomed large, with her confession details admitted but no separate charges, as Rodriguez had backed out of a life sentence plea deal claiming confusion. The jury deliberated briefly, delivering a guilty verdict on March 26. The next day, March 27, they answered yes to his future dangerousness and no to sufficient mitigation, sealing his fate with a death sentence by lethal injection. In that courtroom climax, justice confronted calculation, leaving us to ponder, can a system truly balance the scales when one life ends so many dreams, and what does it say about us when we choose death as the answer? After his 2008 sentencing, Rosendo Rodriguez III entered the stark world of Texas death row at the Allen Polunsky Unit, a maximum security prison in Livingston, known for its brutal isolation cells like concrete tombs, where inmates spent 22 to 23 hours a day alone, with no televisions, no phones, and only a small window for light. Meals slid through a slot, showers were brief and supervised, and recreation meant an hour in a caged outdoor area, often solitary, with no real human contact beyond shouts to nearby cells. Rodriguez, once a sharp-minded Marine reservist, adapted to this grinding routine, waking at dawn for breakfast in his cell, passing time with books, legal papers, or writing complaints about the system, filing grievances almost daily, alleging unfair treatment and negligence. He showed no public remorse, instead maintaining his innocence fiercely, insisting the evidence was mishandled, and that he was railroaded by poor representation. Interactions were minimal. Guards enforced strict rules treating him as high risk, while inmate bonds formed through yelled conversations or passed notes, though Rodriguez kept to himself, focusing on his Muslim faith, which he claimed led to discrimination compared to others. He pursued appeals relentlessly, from state courts to federal habeas petitions, arguing everything from ineffective counsel to prosecutorial misconduct, even filing a last-minute motion in 2018, claiming egregious conduct to halt his execution. But as denials stacked up, including a U.S. Supreme Court rejection hours before his death, the weight of his isolation pressed harder, a decade in limbo, reflecting on a life derailed by violence, yet never owning the pain he inflicted on his victim's family. What does such solitude do to a man's soul, when every day echoes the crimes that put him there? On March 27, 2018, his 38th birthday and exactly 10 years after his sentencing, Rodriguez's final day unfolded in the heavy quiet of Huntsville's Walls Unit, where executions take place. He woke early, likely in a holding cell, spending the morning in reflection or prayer, as was his routine. Family members, including his father, visited in the hours leading up, separated by glass for non-contact talks, perhaps sharing memories or goodbyes, though details remain private, a final thread of connection in his isolated world. Texas had ended special last meal requests in 2011, so Rodriguez ate the standard prison fare served to the unit that day, likely a simple tray of meatloaf, vegetables, and bread, nothing extravagant to mark the end. As evening approached, guards led him to the chamber around, strapping him to the gurney under the gaze of witnesses, including victims' relatives seeking closure amid their enduring grief. His last words spilled out in a lengthy statement, claiming innocence, criticizing the system, quoting Jesus with "I have fought the good fight, I have kept the faith," and urging love for death row inmates while railing against capital punishment, a mix of defiance, faith, and plea that left observers divided on his true heart. The lethal injection, a 3-drug cocktail, began at 6:31 p.m., and he was pronounced dead at 6. His passing swift but shadowed by the lives he shattered. In that chamber, justice met its somber end, reminding all of the irreversible cost of violence, and the human toll on every Rosendo Rodriguez III's story forces us to confront the shadows of a broken system, and the depths of human darkness. Does the death penalty truly deliver justice, or does it perpetuate a cycle of pain that society must question? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if this gripped you, hit like, subscribe and turn on notifications for more true crime deep dive.